morning. So today we're going to be looking at comparing mass. So the last couple of days we've been looking at how to measure mass, what mass is, why do we need mass. So today we're going to have a look at comparing mass. Okay, to get us started then, I want you to have a go at doing our flashback 4, and we're going to be looking at, first of all, I want you to tell me the 3D shape that is on the right hand side, remembering thinking about what it looks like, how we tell the difference between different shapes. Then number 1, you're looking at equivalent fractions. So for this, remember, equivalent just means the same, fractions that mean the same. I'll give you a clue for this one. Remember the kind of like a hamburger technique, what you do to the bottom you must do to the top. So have a go at number 1. Number 2, you're finding 4/5 of 40. So again, you will need to show you're working out like we have done over the last couple of lessons to find 4/5. And remember, we're not finding 1/5, we're finding 4/5. So think about how you would work that out. Number 3, what fraction of the shape is shaded? For this one, tell me what fraction of the shape is shaded. You could, for a bonus point, also say what fraction of the shape isn't shaded as well. And then finally, number 4, what is 8 multiplied by 3? Show me how you work it out. Maybe you could show me a few different methods to do this one, to work this one out. Also, just to also remember as well, on number 2, if you want to get some bonus points as well, you could tell me what 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5 and 5/5 all equal. So see if you can have a go at that. Once you've done that, play the video and we'll see if you've done the correct working out and found all the answers accurately. Okay, so let's have a look at the shape to start with. Now, I have tried to have a go at drawing it. It's quite difficult to draw the 3D shapes, but this is obviously showing the first one. Now, this is a different shape, but these can sometimes where we get confused. Can you just first of all identify what the difference is between the two shapes, thinking about what we've talked about before? So we first thought about, when we've been looking, we looked at pyramids and prisms. So we need to first identify which one is which. So we know if we think of the pyramids that are in Egypt, they all go to one point. So we know that this one would be a pyramid. Whereas a prism would be this one. Prism. As it doesn't go to one single point, there are lots of different points, and we've got rectangles, which are the faces that go around, which obviously shows that it is a prism. Okay, so thinking then, we know it is going to be a prism. We now need to have a look to see what is the shape on the top or on the bottom. There isn't the rectangle. We can see it's a triangle, so you should have said that it was a triangular based prism. So that is the answer. You should have got a triangular based prism. Well done if you've got that. Whereas obviously this one would be a triangular based pyramid, or a triangular pyramid. Okay, so looking at number 1, we are trying to find equivalent fractions. Now this one gives it nice and easy because you're able to see it. So we can see that I've got 3/4, so 3 parts, and there's 4 parts in total, and we can see that that is the same as something 8ths. Now, if we counted how many 8ths were shaded, in line with the 3, you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we would say 3/4 is equivalent to 6/8. Now, if we didn't have this, for example, you would have 3/4 is something 1/8. Now remember, when we've looked at these before, what you do to one side you must do to the other. So I'm going to look at the sides, the top or the bottom that I have first. So I've obviously got my denominators. So I want to know how I get from 4 to 8. Well, we could add 4, but when we're using fractions, we're multiplying or we're dividing. So I'm going to multiply 4 times what is 8, 4, 8, I know I'm timesing by 2. So because I've times the denominators by 2, I must now times my numerators by 2. It must be the same. So 3 times 2 would be 6. So you would find the same answer. So that's why I said it's a little bit like a hamburger or cheeseburger. It looks like the bread on the top and the bottom. So remember, you wouldn't want a burger without a top, but just a bottom, or a bottom without a top. You've got what you do to one, you must do to the other. So I'm just going to show you another example. So this time I've got 5 eighths is equivalent to 10 something. So I need to see, well, I've got my numerators first. So I'm going to see how I got from 5 to 10. Well, I times it by 2. So because I times the top by 2, I must times the bottom by 2 as well, because what I do to the top, I must do to the bottom. 8 times 2 is 16. So I know 5 eighths is equivalent to 10 sixteenths. Okay, I'm going to give you 2 questions I'd like you to have a go at doing, and then we'll go through the answers. Okay, so I've given you a couple of questions here I'd like you to have a go at doing. Now, remember, sometimes we might times and sometimes we might divide. So, for example, on the first one, you need to see whether you'd be dividing or timesing, and for the second one also. Please have a go at these, pause the video, have a go, and then let's have a look to see if you've got them correct. Okay, so let's have a look at the first one. So I know that I have got my denominators. So I want to know, how did I get from, because obviously we're going to go this way now. So I want to know how I got from 3 to 9. So I'm going to times it by 3. So alternatively, because I've times the bottom by 3, I'm going to now times the top by 3. So 1 times by 3 is 3. Alternatively, we could change it. We could do 9 divided by 3 is 3, and 3 divided by 3 is 1 to find the answer. Let's look at the bottom one. So the bottom one, I've got 5 and 15. I want to know how I got, because remember we're going this way. So I'm going to times 5. Let's find out 5, 10, 15, and times in by 3 again. So I need to times the bottom by 3. So I can do 20 or 20 or 20 or 20 times 3, or take off your 0, 2, 4, 6, and then put your 0 on. Your answer should be 60. Fantastic if you got those correct. Okay, number 2. Number 2 is looking at find 4/5 of 40. So I've wrote out 4/5 of 40. I know my total number is 40, and I know that my number of parts is going to be 5. So I'm going to draw 5 circles, 3, 4, 5. Alternatively, I could do, I know that in order to find out how many's in each part, I'm going to do 40, and I'm going to share it between 5 parts, because I've got 40 as my whole. I'm sharing it between 5 parts, so I can do 40 divided by 5, so you can either dot it out, or let's count up in our 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. I know 40 divided by 5 is 8, so I would know that there will be 8 in each part. However, if you have said 8 is your answer, you are not quite correct, because 1 part, so 1/5, equals 8. But if we look at what our question is asking, our question wants to know what 4/5 are worth. So I'm going to find what 4 are worth. So I'm going to do 4 times 8, because I want to know 4 lots of 8. So 4 times 8, which is 32. So 32 should have been your answer. Now for a bonus point, you should have said, if you were working out what 2/5 are, you could have drawn around 2/5, or you could have done 2 times 8, which would have got you 16. If you were finding what 3/5 are, so again, drawing around, or you could have done 3 times 8, which is 24. So that would have been 3/5. Obviously we know what 4/5 are, and 5/5, because it is the whole, the top and the number at the bottom are the same, we would know that 5/5 would be 40. Okay, number 3, we want to know what fraction is shaded. So first of all, I need to count my total number of parts, so I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Alternatively, you could have seen that there are 2 going down, 5 across, so you could say 2 times 5 was 10 parts. Now, I need to find how many parts are shaded, so I'm counting how many parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I know 7/10 are shaded. Now, you could have counted how many parts are not shaded. However, I know in order to make a whole, what have I got to add? How many parts do I add to the 7? Well, let's count. 7, 8, 9, 10. So I should see that there are 1, 2, 3 parts not shaded. So well done if you got both of those. And finally, number 4. Number 4 should be nice and easy. What is 8 multiplied by 3. You could have done your 3 times table or your 8 times table to find 8, 16, 24, or alternatively you could have done in your 3 times table, count up until you've done 8 times 3 to find the answer was 24. Well done if you've got all of those correct, fantastic work. So a quick recap, we were looking at converting, so we knew that there were 1,000 grams in a kilogram, and we also needed to look at kilograms and grams to weigh different objects in. Obviously we spoke about that there were other ways to weigh, but for the purpose of what we're learning at the minute, we're going to be just looking at grams and kilograms. So when we're comparing mass or comparing anything, numbers, capacities, measurements, we use our less than, greater than and equal to sign. So we should all be familiar with this because we've done lots on this before. Now remember, the crocodile will eat the bigger piece. So obviously if it's less than, it's going to eat the bigger piece. So for example, you would say that 3 is less than 5 because the crocodile would eat 5 because it's the bigger number and he's a very greedy crocodile. Now the only time we use the equal to is if both sides are the same, so we would say that they're the same, they are equal to. So looking at the donuts and the pineapples, we want to compare which one is heavier or are they the same. Now if we have a look at, we can look at the scale and we can use that to pull the number off. Well, I've already done that for you. So we can see for the first one weighs 500 grams, whereas the second one we look at the unit of measure and it's in kilograms, so this one weighs 5 kilograms. So we can see that we've got 500 grams and 5 kilograms. Now before we even put our measurements in, what I would suggest doing is converting them so that they are both in the same unit of measure. So I would do it both into grams. So we've got already, so I'll just show you. So I've already got 500 grams and I want to convert my 5 kilograms to grams. Now I know that in a kilogram there are 1,000 grams, so in 5 kilograms there is going to be 5,000 grams. Now if I have a look at these two numbers, I have got 500 and 5,000. Are they the same? No. So which one is bigger? We know that 5,000 is bigger than 500, so I would have my crocodile eating the 5,000, so it reads 500 grams is less than 5,000 grams. I'd like you to have a go at doing this now, just like I've done here. Have a go at writing out, converting it either into grams or into kilograms, whichever you find easiest, and then seeing if you can put your answer in the middle. Have a go and then we'll have a look to see if you've got the answer right. So let's see then. So I have 1,000 grams on one side and I want to see, and I've got 1 kilogram. Now I'm going to convert it to grams just because I find that easier because I'm making it into a bigger number. So I'm going to, in 1 kilogram, I know that there are 1,000 grams because now they are both in grams, so it's easy to compare, and I can see that 1,000 is the same as 1,000 grams, so you should have the equals bracket. Now this time I'd like you to have a go at doing this. So the first thing you're going to do, you're going to now need to work out what these numbers are. So using the weighing scales, can you tell me how much the pears weigh, how much the apples weigh, and then can you have a go at converting it like we've just done here to find the correct answer. Once you've had a go, press play and we'll see if you've got the correct answer. So let's have a look. So the pears, I can see if I look at it is going up in 500 grams, and I can see that the pears weigh 5 kilograms. So that should be the first. So if you've got that, give yourself a little tick. Then I can look, I'm going to draw my circle. Then I'm going to look the apples weigh. It's halfway, it's going up in 100 grams. It's halfway between 400 and 500 grams. So I know that it is going to weigh 450 grams. Now, just because 450 is bigger than 5, does it mean that it is bigger? No, because look, this one's in kilograms and this one's in grams, so we need to convert it. So I'm going to convert my 5 kilograms into grams. So remember, in 1 kilogram there is 1,000, so in 5 kilograms I'm going to have 5,000 grams. So I can now see that 5,000 is going to be greater than 450 grams. So we've got a seesaw here. So if you've gone to the park, you might have been on the seesaw before. So how does a seesaw work? So have a think, have a discussion. How does it work? You might have said something like, two people sit on each side of the swing. What happens is when you push off the floor, it lifts one side up, and so it seesaws, and one goes up and one goes down. Now the reason why this happens is because one person is heavier than the other person, especially at certain times, especially when there's gravity pulling on you. So if you're up at the top, the gravity as well as the weight will pull you down and lift the other person up. Now, if you have ever got on the seesaw with somebody that is probably a lot more heavier than you are, sometimes it might struggle to lift at that side because the weight is unbalanced, okay? Because you're too light and the other person might be too heavy. So, thinking about that, which side would be lighter, A or B and why, and which side would be heavier, A or B and why? So have a think, have a discussion, and then we'll see what you've come up with. So we might have said something like, we know that A would be lighter because the scales are unbalanced and it is lifted higher into the air than B. You would say that B is heavier because B has pulled the scales down towards one side, towards the floor, because the weight of it is heavier than A. So similar here, can you think which is heavier, which is lighter, and why? So you might have said something along the lines of A is lighter because the scale is up at that side, whereas B is heavier because the scale is further down at that side. And we know if something is heavier, it weights something down more. So I'd like you to have a go at doing some of these now, looking at lighter and heavier objects. Have a go at filling in the answers and then have a look. I will go through the answers after for you to go through and mark them and then put them on Seesaw after. So looking at the answers, we can see for number one that the apple is heavier than the orange and the orange is lighter than the apple. And we can see the tennis ball is lighter than the bat and the bat is heavier than the ball. Now for part 2, you had to tick the heaviest barrel. So 2A, the heaviest barrel will be the one that is weighing more, so it is closer to the ground. For part B, the lightest crate is going to weigh the least, so it's going to not be as close to the ground, so it will be the one on the left. And what can you say about the mass of the 2 crates in part C? Now you should have said something along the lines of that the crates will weigh exactly the same because the scales are balanced. They are not unbalanced and they look like they weigh the same. For part 3, you had to draw the book and the tin on the scales to show which one would be heavier. Now, first of all, you had to see which one was the heaviest, and we could see that 450 grams is heavier than 300 grams. So you should have drawn that the tin was on the heavier side, the side that was closer to the ground, than the book that was on the lighter side, which was higher in the air. So for the next question, it is quite a challenge, this one, because you had to really understand it was quite complicated. So Tommy is saying that 2 cubes is the same and balances 6 spheres. So Tommy is going to remove some shapes to see what happens to the scales. So if we look at part A, we can see that 2 cubes are going to be heavier than 5 spheres because 2 cubes were the same as 6 spheres. Now the one in the middle won't be correct because it's saying that they're balanced but they've removed 1 ball, and the one on the right won't be correct because they're saying that 5 spheres are heavier than 2 cubes when actually we know that 6 spheres is going to balance out. For part B, the first part is going to be wrong because actually it says 2 cubes is the same as 6 spheres, so if you've only got 1 cube it's obviously going to be lighter. and it's definitely not going to be balanced, so that is why the one on the right is correct. And part C, we can see that if 6 spheres is equal to 2 cubes, then 1 sphere is going to be equal to 3 cubes, and because it is half, so it's not going to be unbalanced, it's going to balance. For part 5, circle the greater mass. So you might have converted these first. So 50 grams and 5 kilograms, obviously 5 kilograms is 5,000 grams, so that's going to be bigger. 30 grams and 300 grams, so 300 grams is bigger. 1 kilogram, which is equivalent to 1,000 grams, which is obviously bigger than 950, greater than 950 grams. Number 6, 3 weights are shown on the scales. Write the weights in the order starting with the lightest. So you might have had to convert these, alternatively you might not. We can see that the lightest is obviously going to be 55 kilograms, 900 grams, because the other two start with 60 kilograms. We then needed to look for the next lightest one. We knew it was going to start with 60 kilograms. Which one was lighter in grams? Well, it's obviously 200 grams, and then obviously finally the 350. And finally, number 7, is a jar or a mug heavier? How do you know? Talk about it with your partner. Well, I know here that the mug is going to be heavier because 2 mugs is the same weight as 3 jars. So the mug is going to be heavier because if, for example, the equal weight, if both sides weighed the same, we know that if you removed 1 mug, it would, or 1 jar, it would not be the same weight still. So you'd have to look to see that 3 jars is the same as 2 mugs.